Okay, so one of the activities on your Dry Lab 1 is to do some adding, subtracting. Now I'm going to say add now. And whenever I say add, that's the same as subtraction. Subtraction is the inverse of adding. When I say multiply, that's the same as division, which is the inverse of multiplication. And exponentiation is just multiples. Okay, so the page is divided in half, left and right column. Left side is adding, subtraction. Now, most of the time in this class, we're not going to be doing a lot of adding. At the end of Unit 3, we're going to start adding, but we're going to be using a chart, a periodic table very similar to that, which has already been rounded to two decimal places. So there's really no, but anyway, I want you to know how to do it, even though it's in the back of your bag of tricks. The main thing, though, is the right side, which is multiplying and dividing. You have to, I can't stress it enough, you have to understand that process, figuring the sig figs in your answer. For the rest of the semester, I'm going to be looking for that. You will get dinged on a test if you don't do the right number of significant figures. It's very central to quantitative science, sig figs. And remember, only if it's measured. Remember we did the thing with the count yesterday? And I woke up some people, remember that? That's exactly 3 counts. So that's infinite significant figures. By definition, if it's defined like 12 in a dozen, it's exactly 12, not 12.1, not 11.999. It's exactly 12 by definition. So anything defined, infinite. So that means it doesn't come into play when you're trying to calculate the significant figures for the answer. It's totally just there. Okay, so let's look at this again. I'm going to review adding and subtracting again really quickly. So when you add or subtract, all you're interested in is decimal places, period. Doesn't matter how big the number is, you're looking at decimal places. And then you're going to round, and then when you're going to put that in your calculator, and then you're going to round to that number of decimal places. So if we look at this one here, all right, something's not plugged in. Aha. Okay, so looking at this one, let's just do another one here. Let's do okay, if you plug that into your calculator, you're going to get 1.13. Okay, let's look at decimal places. Okay, the top one is 2 decimal places, the bottom one is 1. Hence your answer needs to be 1 decimal place. So that means we're going to round to that. It doesn't matter what's over here. The only one that's important is the second one, this one here. That determines what the first place is going to be. So it's from 0 to 4. So we're just going to drop it. So the answer is 1.1. And again, it's the weakest one. It's the least precise one. Yes, it is. Now, every day that I lecture to you, I'm going to prove to you that I'm human. This is a good example of, yet again. Okay. All right. Are there any questions about adding, subtracting? And again, I'm going to really de-emphasize that in terms of we're just not going to be using it very much, but that's how you do it if you're going to be using it. Another question comes up on dry lab number 2, particularly money. Money always has 2 decimal places. It doesn't matter what we're working with, okay? So your answer will end up with 2 decimal places. So that's, and it shouldn't be that way, but it is, at least in the currency we're working with, where we have dollars and cents, 2 decimal places. That's the only exception. Okay, so let's look at multiplying and dividing now. Now, the thing about multiplying and dividing, it doesn't matter, well, this applies to addition as well. It doesn't matter how many of them you're working with. In other words, in the multiplication, are there 4 pieces to it, 6 pieces? It doesn't matter. What you're looking for are the total significant figures, not the decimal places. Decimal places have nothing to do with multiplying, only in adding. So when we're looking at multiplying, dividing, we're looking at the total number of sig figs. So okay, so we have that combined multiplication division problem. Now I want to show you the way I would like you to get used to doing these multiple problems where you have multiplication and division combined. So whenever you see a fraction bar, that's division. As far as your calculator is concerned, that's the division key. So to do this, you can do it one of 2 ways. One way, in my opinion, is better than the other way. It's less prone to errors. In other words, we do this all in one step, and we do it all within your calculator, regardless of what calculator you have. Now, if you haven't bought a calculator yet, I highly recommend you get one with an EE function on it. If you've already bought your calculator and doesn't have an EE function on it, you can either do one or 2 things. You can live with it, or you can get another calculator. I also have calculators, if you're in the lab, you can borrow. Okay, so to do this on my calculator, okay, so I'm going to go 12.0, and I don't need to put the O in there because the calculator assumes the 0.00000 to 29 places is already there. So you don't have to put it in. Now, if you're OCD, you need to put it in. Just telling you right now, my second wife was OCD and she would put it in every single time. I would go, dear, you don't have to do that. And she said, are you trying to tell me what to do? She was a hospital administrator, top admin in the whole hospital. You cannot tell her anything because she already knew it. Hence ex-wife. All right, so I'm going to put 12 in. Sorry for that. Times what? 145. Now I'm not going to hit enter now. I'm going to press the divide key. I'm going to press the divide key only once, though. All right. Notice I didn't have to write down an intermediate step. I did it all in one step. Now we're going to be doing lots of multi-step problems. You're going to see in Dry Lab 2, the whole worksheet is a series of word problems. And the word problems all involve conversions. And the conversions are multi-step division and multiplication. So you need to get used to this technique where you're doing it all in one step. Now you can do it in two steps if you want, but you run the risk of an internal error. Also, people tend to round with internal steps. You have to leave it as giant a number as possible. You cannot round if you're doing intermediate steps. But if you do it the way I just did it, the calculator takes care of all that for you. Okay, so the answer that my calculator gave me is, all right, we need to determine sig figs for our answer. That's determined by what we're using for numbers to get there. All right, so this has got 3 sig figs, 3, 4. So our answer is going to have the least amount of significant figures. So our answer is going to have 3. So this is what my calculator gives me. Which is not the correct answer. Correct answer is 3 sig figs version of that. So we go to the 4th place, and that's 7, which is 5 or more. That kicks that 8 up to a 9. And I always write 3SF because I'm teaching you how to do this. You don't have to put the 3SF there. If you want to, that's fine for your own clarity, but I won't ding you at all on that. Okay, so does that process make sense? Whenever you're multiplying or exponentiating, yeah. 3 and 3. Each number is separate when you're determining the number of sig figs. Okay, everyone okay with this? Now I'm going to do one more example using scientific notation. All right, we've got the same sort of problem where we've got both multiplication and division going on. So we have to determine the sig figs on each one of those to determine the sig figs in our answer. So this is 2, 3, 3. So our answer is going to have 3 sig figs. Now this is where the EE function comes in. I'm going to do this 2 ways, one with EE, one without. If your calculator has an EE, I can't emphasize this enough, highly recommend you use it. What it does, it ties together the one, in this case, 1.2 to the 10 to the minus 6. It glues it together in one keystroke as opposed to 3 keystrokes. So it's going to save you keystrokes by using EE. And whenever you save keystrokes, that helps you in eliminating possible errors. So the way I'm going to do this, it's going to go 1 point, oops. Also on your calculator, there are 2 minuses. One minus is called subtraction. The other minus is called change sign. Yeah. Oh, yeah, it should be 2. I'm thinking of the other problem. Okay, so again, there are two minus signs on your calculator. Sometimes depending on the brand, if you have a Casio or depending on what version of Texas Instrument you have, it may say something else. It may say actually change sign, or it could be a minus sign in parentheses, like this calculator here. A minus sign in parentheses. That's to go from plus to minus or minus to plus, not the subtraction one. You'll get a syntax error if you use subtraction when you're trying to put in the -6. Okay, so it said 1.2 EE minus 6 times 145 EE 9. Hit the divide key. 156 EE 6. So calculator gives me I need two sig figs. So I go to the third place. It doesn't matter, again, I want to emphasize this, does not matter what is behind it. It could have 29 numbers there. It doesn't really matter. The only one that's important is the third place because that determines the second sig fig. So we're looking at 1.1 times 10 to the minus 3. Now, the other way to do this problem is without using the EE. So I actually have to input this exactly the way it is, including parentheses, if you don't use the EE. Now, it's not that important on the top, but on the bottom, it's absolutely crucial that you have parentheses there. So the way I would do it is I would put in 1.2 times 10 caret, and there's no caret on here. Minus 6 times 145 times 10 caret 9 divided by parentheses 156 times 10 caret 6. Okay, and lo and behold, I get the same answer. I had 8 extra steps by doing it with parentheses. And there's a couple little gotchas on that too. You have to make sure that way you're in the exponential part, you get out of the exponential part before you put another number in. Otherwise, it thinks it's an exponent and you get a syntax error. Okay, so everyone should be able to do this problem and get the same answer as me. All right. This was a showstopper yesterday for some of you. And I just wanted to review this again. Now we're going to be using a lot, we get into Unit 4, a lot of scientific notation. As I was saying yesterday, some of the numbers are really, really large, some are really, really small. And it's required to use scientific notation in the calculations. So you need to know how to handle the scientific notation. Okay, so that's the review for Dry Lab 1. So for those of you today going into it, you have a couple options. If you're very familiar with math already, you can take the thing home and do it. I totally understand that. Or you can stay here and be bored and do it. For the people that need my help, though, I highly recommend you stay here Now, you don't have to do the whole sheet here. You can do a little from each section if you want and finish the rest up at home. Once you check with me that you're doing it right. Or you can just do the whole thing here. Okay. All right. So, yeah. I'm sorry. I'm not sure you. Any of the dry labs. Any of the dry labs. The concept of dry means no chemicals are out or glassware. The wet labs, you have to do them here. I mean, it's like, and there's no making up the dry, unless you, I mean, no making up the wet labs. If you miss a wet lab and you have a Saturday lab, you're kind of screwed. But if you're Friday, you can go to the Saturday lab. So that's the only advantage for Friday labs. Oops. Or if you're Saturday lab and no, you can't make Saturday, you can come to Friday lab. That's not a problem at all. Also, I try to be as flexible as that as possible. Now, the class is officially overloaded by about 9 students. Actually, it's probably closer to 12. And again, the reason I do that, I don't mind overloading because I know the class diminishes in size as time goes on, so it kind of comes in. A lot of professors purposely don't do that to keep their classes smaller, but I want to accommodate as many students as possible, especially since they canceled that other CAM-A session. Couldn't find anyone to teach it, so. All right. Okay, so I'm going to end this video and start a new video for doing the lab write-up. Okay, so no more questions, right? Okay, so